The year was 1863, and while the Civil War left Louisiana's soil soaked with blood, one estate seemed immune to the destruction. Belmont Plantation loomed over the cane fields like a relic of a darker time, its massive white pillars streaked with mildew, its windows like black eyes staring into the night. Inside its walls lived Elias Belmont, a man both feared and revered, a patriarch whose wealth had been preserved by cruelty and cunning. Though nearly 70, Elias walked with the strength of a man decades younger, his back straight, his voice commanding, and his will ironclad. Yet beneath his carefully groomed beard and polished manners, a sickness of the mind festered. He believed the Belmont bloodline was sacred, ordained to rule even as the South crumbled. With his sons lost to war and his fortune threatened, Elias turned his obsession inward upon the last untouched vessel of his family, his 16-year-old granddaughter, Celeste. Celeste was a girl of fragile beauty, pale from lack of sunlight, her black hair falling in waves over delicate shoulders. Her life had been marked by loss. Her mother, Elias's daughter, had died mysteriously when Celeste was only a child. Since then, Elias had forbidden her to mingle with outsiders, cutting her off from church, neighbors, and the laughter of children her age. She was raised in silence, her companions limited to the stifled servants who barely dared speak in her presence. Every hallway she wandered in Belmont whispered with echoes, portraits of ancestors glaring down with ghostly disapproval. Celeste often felt she lived among the dead, her only glimpses of life the roses that stubbornly bloomed in the neglected gardens and the fireflies that hovered outside her barred windows. She prayed for deliverance each night, yet the heavy velvet curtains seemed to swallow her prayers whole, trapping them as surely as she was trapped within her grandfather's grand design. The townsfolk had long whispered of the Belmont family's strangeness. They spoke of secret gatherings in the plantation's cellar, of candlelight glowing through the cracks of the earth, of moans and chants that drifted across the fields on humid nights. Some claimed Elias practiced rituals that bound him to dark forces, explaining why his estate had remained untouched while neighboring plantations burned. Others swore they saw Celeste staring from the upper windows like a ghost in a white gown, her face pale and pressed against the glass. But it was not until Elias summoned her to his study one summer night that the full horror of his intentions was revealed. Surrounded by shelves of leather-bound tomes and portraits of long-dead Belmont patriarchs, he told Celeste her destiny. With a voice calm and resolute, Elias declared that she would become his bride, not merely his heir, but his wife, bound in body and soul, to preserve the Belmont name. Celeste recoiled in horror, yet she found herself powerless. Elias's will was law within Belmont, and resistance meant punishment both swift and cruel. He forbade her from speaking of it to anyone, sealing her in isolation tighter than ever before. Servants who dared to whisper concern were dismissed or disappeared. In preparation for the wedding, Elias had a chamber beneath the mansion transformed into a chapel. The place had once been used for wakes and funerals. Now it was draped in white cloth and garlands of dying flowers. The air smelled of mildew and candle wax, the walls lined with the grim faces of Belmont women painted long ago. Every night Celeste's terror grew, her heart pounding like a drumbeat of doom. Though she wept silently in her bed, she also began to hatch a desperate plan. Hidden beneath her pillow was a small dagger, her late mother's keepsake. Celeste clung to it like a talisman, whispering to herself that if no one came to save her, she would save herself. The night of the wedding arrived in the suffocating heat of July. Outside, thunderclouds gathered, their shadows creeping across the fields, but inside Belmont, candles glowed as though defying the storm. Elias dressed in a black suit, his silver hair slicked back, his expression one of triumph rather than love. Celeste was forced into a gown of white lace, her trembling hands bound in silk gloves. The priest who arrived was no holy man, but a disgraced cleric who owed Elias debts too dark to repay. Only a handful of loyal men stood as witnesses, their faces stern and fearful. As the vows were spoken, Celeste's voice broke into sobs. The priest's Latin words echoed off the stone walls, sounding more like an incantation than a blessing. Outside, the storm finally broke, rain hammering the earth as if the heavens themselves protested the unholy union taking place beneath. When the priest declared Elias and Celeste bound, Elias stepped forward, his eyes burning with a hunger that sent shivers through her bones. He reached to seal the vow with a kiss. It was then that Celeste, her fear transmuted into fury, acted. With trembling but determined hands, she pulled the hidden dagger from beneath her gown and drove it into Elias's chest. His gasp filled the chamber, his blood blooming across her lace like roses in sudden bloom. The witnesses erupted into chaos, some screaming, others fleeing into the storm above. The priest dropped his book and ran, candle flames scattering in his wake. Lightning split the sky, illuminating Elias as he stumbled backward, clutching the blade lodged in his chest, his eyes wide with disbelief. Even as he fell, he muttered one word, legacy, as though the curse of his name might outlive even death. Celeste stood over him, her chest heaving, her dress soaked in crimson. In that moment she felt neither guilt nor relief, but an eerie calm, as though some unseen hand had guided her strike. Elias collapsed upon the altar he had built, his lifeblood seeping into the stone. The storm outside raged with renewed fury, the mansion groaning as if its very foundations knew their master had fallen. Celeste fled the chapel, her footsteps echoing through the empty halls. By morning, when servants finally dared to enter, they found the altar drenched in blood, Elias's corpse rigid with a look of rage frozen on his face. But Celeste was nowhere to be found. Some claimed she escaped into the swamps, vanishing among the cypress trees and Spanish moss. Others whispered that she perished in the storm, her soul forever bound to the mansion she had tried to escape. Belmont Plantation never recovered. Without Elias, the estate fell into ruin, its fields choked with weeds, its halls abandoned to dust and shadows. Neighbors avoided it, crossing themselves when passing the gates. Travelers swore that on stormy nights, a young woman in a blood-soaked wedding dress could be seen wandering the swamps, her eyes hollow, her whispers carried by the wind. Some insisted it was Celeste, cursed to haunt the land she defiled with her grandfather's blood. Others claimed it was Elias himself, doomed to stalk the ruins, still demanding his legacy. To this day, the story of the forbidden marriage of 1863 lingers in hushed whispers, a tale of pride, madness, and the sin that rotted Belmont from within. And those who wander too close to the plantation ruins swear the air grows heavy, the night colder, as if the Belmont curse waits still, hungry for another soul to bind. The more we share these hidden tales, the more people can experience the suspense and drama that history has buried. Help us spread the story by liking this video, sharing it with those who love thrilling narratives, and subscribing for future stories that will leave you speechless.